I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
The more you talk, the harder I want to hit you.
I'm happy because of being here today. Fuck you.
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal, remember? I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Get in the car.
Fucking shit. Fuck me in the fucking ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this review is going to be for none other than 2011's Tower Heist, which is well directed by this piece of shit called Brett Ratner. And yeah, I will say this, fuck Brett Ratner. In the very intro, I will say that. Fuck Brett Ratner. I think he's a piece of shit human being. Screw him. But doesn't stop, but as much as I hate that dude, and even mentioning that guy's name, I mean, doesn't really mean I automatically hate the film. I mean, I still decently enjoy the film despite being directed by that dude. Because, well, especially like one of the cast members actually, who before this was appearing in a lot of flops, actually makes the film enjoyable. So, what's the plot of this? So, Josh Kovacs, played by Ben Stiller, is a manager of an NYC apartment building. And when he finds out this tenant named Arthur Shaw, this wealthy financier, is a criminal, a con man has stole millions, including the employees' pension funds, Josh's plan for payback is to take the millions Shaw hid in his apartment, seemingly. So he forms a team, these like former building employees, one evicted tenant, and a crook who gets out of prison because he bails him out. So they gotta do this under the watchful eyes of an FBI agent, though, who also busted Shaw and is guarding the place. So that's my reaction. I would say Tower Heist is one of the few actually enjoyable films from Eddie Murphy to come out during the like bad era he did, because for the 80s he had a lot of great hits. You know, the Beverly Hills Cop films, or among a few others. But then of course it was the 2000s when he did a lot of shit after shit, like Pluto Nash, Norbit, Imagine That, plenty of others I can mention. This was, oh yeah, Me, Dave. Fuck that movie. Ugh. Fuck Me, Dave. This is actually one of the few that actually feels like his more 80s styled humor. In a way, like this role he played, that is. Because I think he's actually what makes the film enjoyable. I think he's what makes the film actually enjoyable. Really. Kind of a little more than the other characters, really. So, it's because of his character I thought this movie was solid. So, how was this film made? So, Tower Heist began development as early as 2005. It was based on an idea that Eddie Murphy would star him in an all-black cast as his heist group that robbed an international hotel and tower. As the script developed and changed into an Ocean's 11 style caper, Murphy left the project, and Brett Ratner continued to develop the idea what would eventually become Tower Heist, and Murphy later would rejoin. Filming took place in New York City on a budget of $75 million, especially after some tax rebates, and buildings got provided by a certain someone to represent the tower. The film's like sole soundtrack album and score were composed by Christopher Beck and produced by Jake Monaco. That got released on November 1st, 2011. And prior to release, though, the film did get controversy when plans by Universal were going to release it for home viewing video on demand to 500,000 Comcast customers 3 weeks after But concern over the harming ticket sales, inspiring further films to follow suit, resulted in theater chains refusing to show the film if the plan went ahead, so Universal abandoned the idea. That must have been foreshadowing what we have now for streaming in this era. So now it's kind of a thing. But after the film was officially shot and completed, Tower Heist would premiere on November 4th, 2011 in the United States by Universal. It got mixed reviews from critics. They liked the cast members' performances, Broderick's, Leone's, Stiller's. Murphy's was singled out, and critics felt it was pretty much his return to the comedic style that actually made him great in the first place. Back when he was, back then. Well, before the flops had happened. He did make Beverly Hills... And then after this, though, he kind of disappeared for a little while because, well, the film wasn't really all that successful at the box office. So I think this was kind of the last major thing he did. And then he disappeared for a little bit. And then he would eventually come back with Coming to America 2. The less said about that movie, the better. But then he would make Beverly Hills Cop XLF, which was actually quite a surprise. And I wish that film didn't go to Netflix. I wish that actually went to theaters, not Netflix. But the criticism was on the plot because it was formulaic, rushed, dull, and it was not successful at the box office. It earned only $452 million worldwide on a $75 million budget. That's that. Alright, so here are the good qualities in the story of Tower Heist. So, the thing about Tower Heist is, what are the things that do make it enjoyable? Tower Heist is a fun little comedy caper flick, action, and crime thriller at the same time. It's a chess game of life. The opponents are these employees that run this high-class apartment building in the heart of Manhattan, and a penthouse tenant that takes their pensions and savings to the cleaners. One caper, though, deserves another, and the employees are on the rebound after the FBI do get in the picture. It's all about like decorum, money, position, working for a living, trusting others, greed, fraud, getting even with others who screw you over, injustice. It's not really the elements of a comedy, but they add up to a very good entertaining movie. And Ben Stiller's our lead character, Eddie Murphy's our lead character, and he also has some other supporting cast members. They've got Alan Alda as our evil billionaire that they're getting their payback on. Judd Hirsch from Independence Day actually does make an appearance as the top owner, and Corleone from Bad Boys plays the FBI agent that's kind of on their pursuit, and some other actors too. And it's a decent enough premise, and all the cast do a decent enough job, so it's a decent film. Not quite funny to be a comedy through and through, but not quite dramatic enough to be a straight drama. It throws in a bit of high-speed car chase in a mix, an element of action to the genre. It's also still very silly and preposterous, but it's also good to see Eddie Murphy finally trying to be funny again. And honestly, I think his scenes are actually the funny stuff of the film. Ben Stiller is kind of the more serious character of the film. This time around, like, Eddie Murphy's the one that provides the most comedy. Right there, like, the sequence with one of our other members, who teaches him the ins and outs of safe cracking, is also very well done. And Stiller plays a straight man. The others do bounce their comedic lines off him. Like Matthew Broderick, who plays this evicted tenant that eventually does decide to join them. Yeah, Michael Penn is also the other funny member of the gang that also gets the laughs out. And Casey Affleck plays Stiller's in-law, who agrees to be able to get support because he's having a kid. So how do we start off the film? So our main character, Josh Kovacs, is the building manager of the Tower, this apartment complex in New York City that has Wall Street billionaire Arthur Shaw as its penthouse tenant. Josh, this friend of Shaw's, has asked him to manage the staff's pensions. But one day, though, Shaw, eventually, like, the whole thing, like, what you see here, you start off with Shaw taking a morning dip in his pool, Josh getting ready for work, playing online chess with Arthur Shaw, then heading to work, and he has a good relationship with some of the employees, right there, and he also then meets Michael Penn's character, and they get assigned to go evict Matthew Broderick's character, and then Michael Penn's character meets Arthur Shaw when he returns from some stuff, and of course, life kind of goes normal in that tower, though. However, the next day, at first it seems like it's a kidnapping going on. It seems like some guys are kidnapping Arthur Shaw. Josh tries to go rescue, but then Taylor's character then pretty much intervenes on the whole thing, and it turns out Shaw was actually the mastermind of a Ponzi scheme that embezzled up to $2 billion. And so Shaw is placed under house arrest by the FBI. And so the staff members realizing they're going to lose their pensions and they're distraught. And Lester, though, is suffering the worst because he was planning to retire and open up this bar. But now can't really do that, so this is kind of the bit where they actually kind of play this moment straight serious right here, where Lester is just depressed at losing his dream, and he actually attempts suicide at the subway train tracks. And so, after Josh finds out about what happened, and that he suffered the worst losses of all the employees, Josh is mad about this because he has a good friendship with Lester, and so his brother-in-law and the concierge, or Casey Affleck and Michael Pena's characters, and pretty much, and also this elevator operator, though, pretty much then go inside and they confront Shaw for a scheme. Well, technically Josh's the only one trying to, but the other two kind of just end up following him there and not really doing anything. But Josh, wanting payback for Lester, smashes Shaw's car for a bit, and this is a bit of a funny bit right here when he smashes the car, and so pretty much after he leaves, though, Judd Hirsch's characters fire them. Casey Affleck's character tries to protest this, but Judd Hirsch's character shows no sympathy. And so Affleck's character is mad at Josh, and he pretty much cuts ties with them. And so, though, then later Taylor Leone's character meets up with Josh at a bar when he's trying to provide evidence, but unfortunately doesn't get through, though. But she then suggests, in a drunk state, that Shaw can steal $20 million as a reserve, and he should steal it. So Josh kind of listens to this sarcastic drunk advice, and gets then Charlie, Enrique, and then Matthew Broderick's character to help him steal the money. And as we see, when he's recruiting them, their lives are already miserable. They already have miserable jobs. Affleck's character now works at the New York Toys R Us, the one that had the Ferris wheel. And his life's miserable because they can't afford to have their kids, so they'll probably have to sell their baby for adoption. Michael Pena's character is back at a burger place. And so, they agree to help steal the money, along with Matthew Broderick's character, and this is kind of where the first act begins. Like, this movie brings so much comedy in certain parts. While certain parts it's more dramatic, or certain parts it's more of an action thriller, but there's still some comedy a bit that some of the comedy is kind of funny. Like, some clever comedy dialogue. When the action begins, it brings a fresh moment, and it's still a refreshing comedy. There's twists in the movie that actually do make the story actually tolerable. Like, the story does kind of bend, it's a little formulaic a little bit, and it does make a slight confusing moments, but not really around the end. So it's kind of ironic where they hide the car they're after in the pool at the end, and when you see the pool the very first moment of the movie, but you don't really see it a lot till the end, because once Shaw's arrested, Josh has to cover up the pool, basically. Directors really give a clue, but it's clear that the pool would be the key where the car would get hidden. A certain car that actually has something. And while the comedy is funny, it's not entirely a comedy. One of the problems I think it does have is that it kind of just blends a bunch of genres. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. Like, look at Beverly Hills Cop. Beverly Hills Cop is a comedy, but at least it actually knows the type of comedy it is. It's an action comedy. That's what it is. The Beverly Hills Cop films know what they are. They're action comedies. They're not just comedy and then just throwing in action while trying to still be comedy or dramatic at times. Like, they're still actually action comedies. So it's got action in it. There are some pretty thrilling bits. And the comedy action aren't too bad of a combination. It might seem a little cliche, but it's actually not a bad film. It's hard to really think of an original comedy story because there's an amount of them made every year. Amount of them made, usually. There are pretty much older comedies that used to be like those new ones back then. And like these movies are made for thinking. They're for laughing and enjoying. So, but then of course, once the four team up, they realize they don't have experience stealing, especially because they're from a tower that they're fired and banned from entering. But Josh remembers there's this criminal that is one of his neighbors that often constantly argues and interacts with him on the streets. Was apparently also childhood friends with them. Named Slide, who's Eddie Murphy's character. And so Josh then pretty much enlists him because around this time he's been arrested earlier. And so he bails him out. And so like this is where the funny stuff happens here. It's where the funny stuff happens with his character. You know, like some of his arguments were Josh for the highlights, and when I heard the mall bits, when he pretty much assigns them this whole first task of practice stealing. Now I want you to go steal something and leave me all your wallets. No, I don't want people buying stuff and coming back and throwing out the receipts and saying they stole it. And they give him his wallets, and Josh steals his girl's underwear. Michael Penna's character steals his shoes. Casey Affleck's character steals these earrings, and Matthew Broderick's character, I think, steals a sweater. And when he comes back, Eddie Murphy's character Slide has already stolen money out of their wallets. I took $50 out of your wallets. Rule number 1, you never give a random guy your wallets. And it's like there, and when pretty much assigning them for their first meeting up on the roof in the middle of the cold weather. Michael Penna's complaining about it. Eddie Murphy's like telling, hey, no complaining. Like, honestly, Slide's the best part of the film. You know, a part of me kind of wishes Slide was the main character. Like, a part of me kind of wishes Eddie Murphy was the main character of this film a little bit more. Because honestly, I feel the comedy stuff of this film works with his character easily. Like, kind of a little more than Ben Stiller's role, to be honest. Then, of course, so... Then also, though, but it turns out Slide doesn't know about safes because he's never really stolen from a safe, and so they recruit another person who actually has lockpick experience. This man named Odessa, and then, of course, while they're planning out their heist and stuff, though, Michael Penna's character does also misread ski masks and gets some ski hats, and Josh said ski masks, not little pom poms, and Michael Penna's character's like, but he said they were the warmest. So he got some ski hats, basically. And of course, Josh gets called back to the tower so he can go apologize to Shaw for smashing his car to avoid going to prison. And then, of course, that kind of works out. And then Denham gives Josh the surveillance footage of him smashing Shaw's car. And kind of asks her out, then he comes back like, what, you asked her out? And that stuff, and of course then, well, though Arthur Shaw's lying about not pressing charges anymore, so he clearly plans to press charges on Josh anyway when he gets out of prison, and stuff, like, though Denham informs Josh that Shaw's scheduled to attend court on Thanksgiving, pretty much during this Thanksgiving Day parade going on at the same time in the same area to avoid publicity, so they decide to break into Shaw's apartment then. Although, it's likely hinted that Josh actually arranged the date change on purpose to give them a time to rob it. You know, when most of the staff won't be watching because they'll be likely watching a parade, they'll be distracted by the parade, so they pick the day of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. They lie about the court date to be able to rob that place, rob back all that gold. And so while this is happening, though, Affleck's character gets rehired as the tower's new manager, and he's not comfortable with stealing anymore. He tells Josh to abandon it, or he's going to turn him over to the cops. Then, of course, they're able to pull off a few distractions, like with the parade, or pretty much send a fake text about that Affleck's character's baby is going to be already on the way. And of course, they get into the apartment, and then Slide tries to betray them by reaching the safe ahead of them and taking all the money for himself. But it turns out because he tricked Odessa into giving lessons, though. But Odessa then immediately stops him from doing this. And so the team is able to intercept at Shaw's apartment and break down this false wall. And it reveals Shaw's safe, but It turns out Shaw's safe has no money in it at all. But then, of course, Josh realizes that the actual money is actually the car that you see throughout the film in Shaw's apartment, this red Ferrari that looks very sketchy to look at. And you can tell there's something a little up about this Ferrari in there. Like, so you're wondering, how would Shaw be able to get a Ferrari in his apartment? And you never really saw him mention this Ferrari, and so you can see why this Ferrari looks so suspicious, and it is, because it has all the stolen money that he melted and turned into that Ferrari to avoid being caught. But of course, they also find underneath the whole, right there, when they're realizing this, they can easily turn the whole car into car parts, and reassure the car and reassemble the car inside the apartment to hide the money in plain sight, though. So, of course, they realize that the car's value is $45 million, and they decide to lower it into the old apartment using this window washing platform. And so then when Charlie realizes the whole distractions that are going on, Affleck's character realizes the distractions that are going on. He pretty much then has a change of heart and realizes their presence, and while Matthew Broderick's character is trying to get the car, though, he sees how high the tower is and starts immediately freaking out. And so Josh and Sly try to pretty much go down there and assist Broderick's character. Though when Broderick tries to grab the car, he gets like stuck holding on. And you get a bit of a high panic situation where he's hanging on for dear life, and you can kind of feel the tension in this bit, because that's the thing. Anyone who fears heights could probably fear a scenario like this. But Affleck's character, though, ends up saving Broderick's character from falling to his death. And at first he's like mad about Josh, but then mad at Josh for putting him in the scenario again. But Michael Pena's character then mentions the whole what the car's made out of. And so Charlie then decides to pretty much rejoin the whole heist, realizing what the car is worth and abandon his new manager position. And so they push the car on top of one of the elevators to be able to get it down, because they know the car's not going to fit in the elevator. So they have to go on top of the elevator to get the car down. And meanwhile, though, while Josh is inspecting the car, he manages to see in the glove box that says a ledger of Shaw's illegal finances that details that pretty much details all the crimes he committed with all that money right there. And so that's another thing that's hidden in there. Like, what's also hidden in that car is the book of all his crimes. So this is why, like, Shaw believes he'll get away with it. He hid it, and he thinks like no one would look inside a display car for a ledger of his illegal scams he pulled off, and melted all that stolen money into that entire car. So, throughout the film, we see great wit and energy from the likes of Affleck, Broderick, Gabriel Sibi, Michael Pena, Leone, and many other smaller supporting players. And so, though, now some of them would seem like ill-fitting choices, but here's the thing, they actually do pull off their roles well. And it's very pleasantly surprising. Like, when you watch them perform here, you can definitely tell the cast members are still having fun during the shoots, and they're having fun playing these roles. They're having fun playing this caper flick. A part of me does kind of wish they kind of went to the more Ocean's 11 route with these actors, like it was originally intended. And I think that probably would have been better. It would have felt more like a heist film that way. And Broderick and Murphy Pena, Broderick, and Murphy do bring the laughter to the audience, but much of the heist is kind of nonsensical, though, and impossible. Because, like, really, how in the world could you get a display car out of an apartment? How could a car be made out of gold? And how could a safe be hidden inside a wall? Like, really. So it's not really difficult to spot the flaws in the plots. And the whole stickers on the security cameras, no, that would not happen. But the craziness and absurdity of the heist does make it more comical. And while Stiller's kind of known for more slapstick character roles, you think he would have played it like that, but no, he actually plays the character mostly straight, and He actually makes his character more believably a little more serious here, more leadership capability, forward thinking, and he's not a small man thrust in a big situation. He's more of a normal man that actually kind of seems to know stuff and forms a plan to reach this goal. And it's usually Eddie Murphy that's the one that has the comedic stuff to him. Like Eddie Murphy plays his role with more complexity. Like doesn't burst into Axel Foley here. No, he doesn't. He's more of a this character is a bit of a thieving bastard, but he's a completely believable bastard, and this whole script that Murphy has really allows him to act in the role and not just play a usual role. And it's an important direction right here, like right there. So, meanwhile, though, because Shaw and the FBI believe the court dates, they realize, though, the Thanksgiving that there's no court date going on. The judge is away celebrating Thanksgiving, and so they realize now that the whole date was part of Josh's plan. They realize this so he could be robbed. And then, of course, they get back to the apartment. The car's missing, and though Denham finds Shaw's hidden safe, and mad that he lied about stuff that pretty much is a violation of parole. His $10 million bail is forfeited, and so he's pretty much going to be sent to prison until his real court dates for not informing the FBI of the safe. And so they're also looking for the car. And Lester's forming a distraction to kind of distract the FBI at the same time when he's out of the hospital. And it's also kind of on their plan, though. At first, he pretty much lies that it's another suicide attempt, but he's apprehended by the FBI, and so the FBI basically arrests the rest of Josh's pals. Slide, though, was actually slipped away before he could be found. When they do arrest Michael Pena's character, Michael Pena actually makes a run for it when they're out to apprehend him. And I'm just like, wouldn't that get your sentence extended for resisting arrest? Well, the others do cooperate. Like Josh actually anticipates his arrest when Denham catches up to Josh and pretty much allows himself to be arrested calmly. So, because he knows now he has evidence to put Shaw in prison. So once they're in the wagon being driven off to the station, Shaw's in the wagon with them. And so he asks him where the car is. And of course, then when Josh then pretty much mentions that even though they'll be going to prison for stealing, Shaw's going to be going for life and never getting out. And pretty much then because he mentions that they now have the ledger right there. And so Shaw, throughout the film, thought he was a smug little bastard that thought he could get away with anything. He tries to negotiate a deal with them by giving them cash 10 times the value of the car in exchange to keep quiet. But Affleck's character has Pena remind him that throughout the film, like whenever they're mentioning tips, they mention they're not allowed to take tips. And so they decline. So Pena's character declines a bribe. I'm sorry, Mr. Shaw, but I'm afraid we don't accept tips at the tower. And so Shaw realizes he's screwed. Now, so his crimes are going to be getting out to the FBI. So once they get to the headquarters, when Josh is being interrogated about his friendship with Slide and about the stolen car, this receptionist at the tower that's apparently passing this bar exam to be a lawyer, as just mentioned, has already passed it and decides to be Josh's attorney. And so she presents them Shaw's ledger and tells them that she'll only turn it over while let everybody else walk free. And so one FBI official accepts it, though, but he'll only accept it that everybody else goes but Josh, who is going to be serving 2 years for stealing the car and being the mastermind. And so Josh thinks of it for a minute, and he asks, no one else will be charged? And you see, nobody else except for him is charged. So he accepts it because, well, let's face it, Josh is only going for 2 years. If it means putting Shaw in prison, then he'll take it. The writing is actually not bad. And now the movie's not super funny from a majority of some of the other characters, minus Murphy and Pena and Broderick. They still get some of the bits of great humor. I think the worst attempts at comedy are Odessa's yelling in the film. I think Odessa's parts are kind of the more irritating. I feel like you could have wrote this character more better, made her a little less obnoxious, because like she doesn't really play much of a role except for really crack the safe, really. Doesn't really play much of a role in the film. And I think for the best parts are when Slide has them test out their stealing skills at the mall, or when Josh beats up Shaw's Ferrari. I think it does kind of lead to foreshadowing as where that money's kind of hidden. There, of course. And it's also very satisfying after he's driven Lester to suicide, attempting suicide. And of course, the bit where Slide sends Josh, pretty much, yeah, the part where around the mall is also darn funny, like as Josh steals especially because Josh steals the girl's underwear, and then Slide takes the opportunity to steal money from the wallets. Like, there's some good edge of your seat stuff as well here. And it does visually excel pretty well for a $75 million budgeted comedy. It's something edited that gets a real sense of how big New York is. They do really good at making it all seem believable. And also you have the music. You have Christopher Beck's score for the film. The score for this movie is really, really good, especially the score in the final act. With the slide, the ticking, the bath-driven theme that assumes several different guises throughout the movie. It ranges from mysterious to either suspenseful to triumphant. So now we get on with the finale of the movie. So how the finale goes is, once they're all out, the news reports have mentioned that Shaw's been announced guilty and he's going to prison for life. And then it cuts to them at the pool deck, where they uncover the pool, and it turns out the car's been hidden in the pool. And so Slide was there. And he leads the retrieval of the car, and so the whole crew off-screen, they dismantle the parts, and they send it to the tower employees to compensate for their lost pensions, and they split the remainder of the gold among themselves. Shaw gets booked into prison to rot away the rest of his life. And I guess from what you can tell, when he's being led to his cell, from the prisoner's reaction to seeing him enter, you know what it's implying. Let's just say, don't drop the soap, or the stuffing of the turkey, not in the turkey. What it clearly implies what Shaw's about to get, as soon as he gets into his cell. Or later on that night. And meanwhile, though, when everybody else is getting those stolen car parts, Josh is being booked into his cell for his 2-year sentence, and he forms a satisfied smirk that he pulled it off. And forming on his face when he's going to his prison cell, he forms a satisfied smirk because he knows that Shaw will now be in prison for the rest of his life. Those employees will now get their stolen money back. And he knows he'll be out in 2 years. So pretty much there's that. He'll be out in 2 years before he even knows it. Heck, who knows? He might even get out early. And honestly, I think Josh's life in prison will actually be pretty swell. Because if there are any other prisoners in the one he's being held at, I'm sure they'll probably have some respect for him for pulling off such a clever heist. So his life will probably be pretty swell. Arthur Shaw's will definitely be not. So, that's how Tower Heist ends. Shaw gets sent to prison for life after his scams are revealed. Josh does get sent to jail as well because he still pulled out the robbery, but his sentence is reduced to 2 years, and of course, everybody else goes free. And they recover Shaw's Ferrari, and they divide the solid gold car parts among everybody else. And originally, though, there's a deleted scene where he mentions he could get out in 16 months for good behavior, or I think there was supposed to be an original extended ending where he does get released, and Slide's the one that picks him up, and they drive off to what is now Lester's bar. It's taken over Shaw's penthouse. I wish that was the full ending there. I feel like that would have been a much more proper ending than just abruptly ending it with Josh going to prison. I feel that would have been better. So that leads us into the bad qualities. So there are points where some comical dialogue falls flat, like Odessa's bits, or some of Casey Affleck's bits. sometimes it tries too hard to be too many genres. Like, it doesn't know if it wants to be comedic, or it wants to be action, or if it wants to be thriller or drama. That's the thing. It feels like it wants to be a bunch of genres all at once. Like, the first 20 or 30 minutes, I think, are kind of really. But, to be fair, they are trying to set everything up so they could kind of lead up to all this stuff at the end. And, other than that, some of the other jokes just kind of start falling flat. And some of these guys don't really feel like robbers because they feel like too much Mr. Nice Guys, really. There's a lot of ideas that could come out to finish this kind of movie gender, but nah. It just feels like that, really. They don't really feel much like criminals, and I don't really like it just abruptly ends with Josh being booked in prison. I mean, yeah, still going to prison, but still show him like being released, still show some time later when he's eventually let out. After serving his 2-year sentence. I mean, he is only there for 2 years, so that'll be over before he even knows it. And he'll likely get it, and besides, he's obviously going to behave in prison, because at least he did what he set out to do. So everybody else got their gold, so he'll be fine with his prison sentence. So he'll get out within quite a bit. So his sentence won't be that long. I mean, it's not really realistic because I don't think that would happen, but come on. Tower Heist is a comedy caper flick. Are those ever realistic? Not really. So other than those, Tower Heist is a solid, enjoyable caper flick. So in the end, I would probably say stream Tower Heist if you want to see a decent caper flick that has one of the few better Eddie Murphy performances of the more flop era he had. Anyways, that's it for my review of Tower Heist. And where I'm going Tower Heist, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, I guess if you want to see a decent caper flick that gets carried on by Eddie Murphy's 80s style comedy, that would definitely stream Tower Heist for sure, no doubt. And if we're going Tower Heist, I'm going to give Tower Heist a 7 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That officially wraps up my review for Tower Heist. Now I want to know in the comments down below what you guys think about Tower Heist, whether you guys like this movie or don't care much for this movie. And until then, that will be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. And if you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.